Welcome back. Last month, our 11 Investigates team brought you its prison interview with Brent Kohlhofer. He has been sentenced to life in prison for the killing of 2 Toledo teens in 2022. But there was another man, Charles Walker, who was convicted along with Kohlhofer. Our team will bring you his story tonight. Lead investigator Brian Duggar joins us with a preview of that. Brian, briefly remind viewers of the details in this case.
Yes, so 16-year-old Kamarian Wilder and 15-year-old Kashawn Pittman, they were lured over to the South Toledo house by somebody who believed, Corbin Gingrich, who believed Kamarian stole his gun. While they were over there, they were beaten up, they were pistol whipped, they were tied up. And then the story, according to police and prosecutors, is that they turned the boys over to Kohlhofer and Walker, who came over, put them inside a trunk, took them somewhere else, and killed them. And Brent and Charles were the only ones who were actually convicted of actually killing them, and they were both sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole.
Right, there were what, like 9 people charged?
There were 11 altogether.
11 in connection. So where is Walker in prison that you went and traveled to talk with him?
Yeah, so he's actually, and that's an interesting story, Amanda, because he was in Lebanon when we went and talked to Kohlhofer, and then after we talked to Kohlhofer, he got moved like immediately to Mansfield, which was very interesting. First of all, I was surprised that they were actually in prison together in the same place. But after I said, hey, I also want to talk to Walker, all of a sudden Walker gets, he said it came out of nowhere. They came into my cell and said, hey, you're leaving. So he's in Mansfield right now.
Okay, and that's where you went. Now online, a lot of people are saying these guys are actually innocent. Are there key pieces of evidence here that would lead people to think that?
Yeah, in my mind, the big thing is motive. Police and prosecutors said that Kohlhofer and Walker were angry about break-ins at their properties. And we do know that there was a November 2022 break-in at Brent's property, and then immediately after that, Charles' property, the same day. But Charles had 10 cameras on his house, and they were both down in Florida at a car show. They got the notification on their phone, they're looking at it, and they could tell that it was Brent's nephew and his 2 friends, not Kamarian, not Kashawn. As far as they know, they had nothing to do with any of these things. And in fact, at those break-ins, nothing was even stolen from their houses. Now, after the alarm went off at Brent's house, the police showed up, they confiscated a bunch of marijuana and cash, but nothing was taken from Charles' house. And so when you think of a motive, they had no motive. Like Walker didn't even know these kids. I mean, he knew Kashawn, but he didn't know Kamarian. And Kashawn was almost like family to Kohlhofer. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. And then the cameras, yeah, there were 10 cameras on Walker's house. And he said, look, I couldn't sneak out of my house if I wanted to without a camera catching me. And I asked him, I said, why do you have 10 cameras on your house? He said, well, I only wanted 6, but you have to bundles of 5, so they gave me 10. But those camera footage, it was never put into evidence. It was never taken by police, and it was never put into evidence by Walker's own attorneys. And then of course there is a text message from one of the men who was in the house that night by the name of Don Eames. He was texting his girlfriend. He said, I can't believe you left me in a house where these 2 kids just died. Now he was talking about the Maumee Avenue house. And of course, if they died in Maumee Avenue, they weren't handed over to Brent and Charles. And that would mean that they likely had absolutely nothing to do with this, which of course they claim they didn't. Right.
So, okay. So you have a lot of information on this case after especially getting this jailhouse interview with Walker. So that is tonight at 11 o'clock and people can see the full story?
That's tonight at 11. And we actually have, we put the entire interview with Walker up on our YouTube channel, so people can see the hour and 15 minutes. I don't want to tell them what to think, but I mean, they should watch it and they should actually tell me what they think about it. And we got a recent, not a recent, but we had a it was not published before, a police interview with Don Eames, which I think is very interesting. Right before the trial, he actually tries to take back the story that Brent and Charles had anything to do with this. In that meeting with police, he said they didn't have anything to do with it. I lied. So we have that up. We have another phone call, which also seems to imply that they had nothing to do with that.
So you can find all that on our WTOL 11 YouTube channel, and then tune in tonight at 11 o'clock to see your special story on that interview with Walker. All right, thanks for your work, Brian.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Yep.